On September 16th, just a couple of days ago, allegations came out about Russell Brand in a joint piece, an article in The Times, and a documentary on Channel 4 Dispatches. The allegations are terrifying. Obviously, huge content warning for SA. If you can't stomach that right now, watch a different video or hit subscribe and come back for the next one. Or don't. In short, 3 women and one 16-year-old girl describe violent attacks, SARAPE, and physical abuse. Each of the accounts are harrowing. The reaction from gender-critical anti-trans activists, the same ones who claim to be feminists, was appalling.
The man is anti-transing children, anti-folksine mandates, anti-1T-minute cities, anti-censorship, etc., etc., etc. Don't get distracted by it all.
Why would support or sympathy be given to a group of women who have yet to report their claims to the police?
Nothing says feminist more than someone named XX Females claiming that survivors don't deserve sympathy unless they're willing to put themselves on trial in a system created to protect the interests of powerful men.
Russell Brand and Brianna J. are one and the same. The root cause is narcissism.
Brianna, if you remember, is the young trans girl who was stabbed multiple times in a park by her peers, fatally. The comfort gender-critical people have comparing an accused rapist to a murdered teen is honestly impressive in a completely disgusting kind of way. Every day, they're setting new lows, setting world records for showing less and less humanity.
It's a measure of the depths of our cynicism that when a scandal like this breaks, my first reaction is to wonder why they are trying to silence the person. At least Russell Brand has done journalism and tried to bring the truth to the public, not something you could say of his media accusers. Let's see what they've got on him.
A measure of the depths of your cynicism. No thoughts for the 16-year-old victim?
I haven't read the story. I just wonder why now.
I, too, just like to sit and just wonder things instead of seeking answers in the text. How little were the little women? Who are Romeo and Juliet? We may never know. You shouldn't be surprised. This is exactly what gender-critical ideology leads to. Just a few years ago, on BBC Radio 4's Today program, Germaine Greer said that the 84 women who have launched cases against Weinstein were wrecking people's lives, calling them career rapees. And gender-critical people are doing the same now in defense of Russell Brand. EJ Rosetta, an unhinged anti-trans grifter who recently went viral for tweeting about how she wanted to trigger her trans twin by wearing turf colors. Sorry, but this is just too ridiculous not to talk about. Please, the Barneyfication of politics needs to stop. Anyway, EJ, she also came out in support of Brand.
I love watching Russell Brand because if I can understand even 1/3 of what he says, that means I'm very, very clever. Oh, also, hi Russell. We met twice when I was 16 and, so they say, irresistible. I have a very good predator radar, and you're not one. You are sweet and respectful. I was 16 and, so they say, gorgeous, and very determined to have his attention. He knew my age and did nothing inappropriate at all. I was rather peeved. Twice! I can only speak from my own experience, of course, but there it is. I'm not sure if Russell Brand knew that I was 16. I looked and acted far older. People used to believe I was 22 all the time. Remember when you were so young you wanted to look older? Ah, those were the days.
Ladies and gentlemen, gender-critical feminism in a nutshell. The gall of someone to say, oh my god, I was like super pretty and he didn't even assault me. And I was like so mad. You're disgusting. You need therapy. You need a rabies shot. And it's not just her.
At least Russell Brand knows what a woman is.
I'm not sure Brand ever claimed to be a woman and invaded women's spaces. Fuck Eddie Izzard and all autogynephiles. They should be drowned, in my opinion, for the record.
Yeah, sure, he raped women and girls, but he knows what a woman is and he didn't invade a woman's space. What the fucking hell do you think rape is if not invading women's spaces? Literally, physically. These people are nauseating. But of course, it's trans people are the ones who should be drowned. Jesus, I've said so many demonetizable words so many times now that I'm scared I'm going to have to bleep out 95% of the uses in this video. If you have a clever little idea about how to get by having to bleep out words, let me know in the comments because people love to complain about this. Like, do you prefer a bleep or a silence or a sound effect so I can do it in the least annoying way possible? By the way, with how many times I have to discuss topics YouTube hates in this video, it's definitely going to be at least flagged as limited ads, but most likely will be demonetized entirely. So consider signing up for my Patreon so I can continue to cover important and sensitive topics without being scared I can't pay my rent. In the last month, YouTube has restricted 2 of my videos just for saying the word queer. So I'm a bit worried over here, especially given what I'm going to be discussing next, the allegations. Again, content warning, you don't need to watch this.
One woman alleges that Brand raped her against a wall in his Los Angeles home. She was treated at a rape crisis center on the same day, according to medical records. Text messages show that in the hours after leaving his house, she told Brand that she had been scared by him and felt taken advantage of, adding, quote, "When a girl says no, it means no," end quote. Brand replied saying that he was, quote, "very sorry," end quote. A second woman alleges that Brand assaulted her when he was 31 and she was 16 and still at school. She said he referred to her as, quote, "the child," end quote, during an emotionally abusive and controlling relationship that lasted for about 3 months, and that Brand once, quote, "forced his penis down her throat," end quote, making her choke. She says she tried to push him off and said she had to punch him in the stomach to make him stop. A third woman claims that he sexually assaulted her while she worked with him in Los Angeles, and that he threatened to take legal action if she told anyone else about her allegation. The fourth described being sexually assaulted by Brand and him being physically and emotionally abusive towards her.
This is what gender-critical people are claiming is far-fetched. Somehow, all trans women are guilty of being a danger to cis women because they're men, but cis men who actually assault women are innocent until proven guilty. The reason they've chosen Brand to defend, despite him not being a raging transphobe who never shuts about anti-trans conspiracies, is because, like them, he's still a conspiracy theorist. He's still a reactionary, a truth teller, just like them, silenced by the powers that be. Like Jewish people who run the media, apparently. Silenced just like them.
They, the powers that be, do use this tactic to target men and slur them. If this wasn't the case, why didn't this come out long before? Why now? I followed Russell Brand for some time, and for the last few years he's exposed corruption on a massive scale. So put 2 and 2 together.
But on top of that, gender-critical ideology is just very much in favor of promoting rape culture when it suits the talking points. Julia Hartley-Brewer, an anti-trans activist who has the critical thinking skills of a dry sponge, came out pushing one of rape culture's most harmful ideas. They probably wanted it and then changed their mind after.
Without a police inquiry or court case, we can't know for sure what really happened. The reality is that there have been and still are many, many men in the showbiz world who behave in the way Russell Brand is being accused of, and they are surrounded by men and women who allow it, cover it up, and even enable it. But there are also plenty of women who actively want to have a one-night stand sex with celebrities like Russell Brand. The issue is whether they are too easy prey for exploitation when it goes wrong. Why him? Why now? Because he's famous and the women were willing to speak out.
When someone pointed out that one of these women who actively want to have a one-night stand was actually a 16-year-old girl, anti-trans activist Julia responded,
"Yep, old enough to vote according to Labour and the SNP, but not old enough to choose her sexual partner?"
Sarah Phillimore, a gender-critical anti-trans activist, as cringe as she is vile, was incensed that a former prosecutor tweeted that reporting on the allegations against Brand was meticulously investigated and sourced. She was claiming that he should not be able to state his opinion, calling it a trial by media. When asked how it was a trial by media, she said that he was inviting people to believe the survivors. Something I think most feminists would find not only completely normal, but virtuous. Not a gender-critical feminist, though. When asked,
"Isn't investigative journalism's raison d'etre to uncover abuses of power?"
she replied,
Yes. Is spending 4 years to report that women were upset Brand didn't call them back a good use of those 4 years, I wonder? This is clickbait. Take the evidence to the police if it's meticulous.
They don't care about actually protecting women or girls, which is why Kelly J. Keane will imply David Tennant is a pedophile for supporting gender and sexual minorities, but then come out sounding like a 4chan Nazi conspiracy theorist, Michael Myers, in defense of frickin' Epstein.
Not a single person named on Epstein's list has been questioned by the police. It's not whether a person has committed crimes these days. It's about whether they serve a purpose.
Amazing that she can apply someone who has committed no crimes, is a sex offender who preys on children, to serve her anti-trans agenda, but going after Epstein is too far for her. Although it makes a little more sense when you know that Kelly J herself has a connection to Epstein. The white supremacist she worked with received $25,000 from Jeffrey Epstein to produce propaganda and requested additional funding from Epstein to finance his book. This is the gender-critical version of the enemy of my enemy is my friend, except abusers and violent men aren't the enemy of gender-critical ideology. They're the backbone of it. You might be asking why, if they're so pro-rape culture, would they constantly be using feminist-sounding language about protecting women and girls from abuse? That's incredibly obvious once you've spent enough time in their circles. Why would they do it? To recruit. To gender-critical ideology, rape and sexual assault are a talking point, a tool to weaponize the trauma of survivors to recruit new people into their reactionary ideology. But still, their ideology isn't built on being internally consistent. It doesn't need to be consistent when it eschews science and reason for gut instinct and sloganeering. And while they've really gone mask off this week, gender-critical anti-trans activists denying that people have been raped isn't new. It's actually a core part of their ideology. So integral, in fact, that they'll even attack rape crisis centers if they help anyone they deem not to be true victims of rape, which is often men, lesbians, and young boys and girls whose perpetrator was a woman. For example, when Rape Crisis Scotland launched an extra service, an online platform where survivors could seek help in crisis, notable gender-critical cultist and anti-trans activist Alison Bailey attacked them for not catering only to cis women. But also because she doesn't believe that lesbians raped by their partners are real rape victims, that young boys raped by their teachers or female family members are real rape victims. Only women penetrated by a man with a penis are rape victims, and as such, any and all services should be tailored to them. In Western society, lesbian intimacy and relationships are undermined and invalidated at every turn. Their love is played off as fleeting and confused. Their sex is seen as something existing for the male gaze, not an expression of genuine attraction and intimacy. And definitely, lesbians are not viewed as having as valid of a relationship as straight people, sexually or emotionally. And these sentiments inform the laws created around rape and sexual assault. Allison and other anti-trans activists will say that they're just following the letter of the law. But the reason why rape is classified in the UK as penetration with a penis is because that's what sex is to the patriarchy. It is based on a heterosexist, misogynistic, and homophobic idea of sex. And when you uphold the laws informed by these bigotries, you uphold the bigotry itself as a law. How would an ideology that believes lesbians can't be raped by their partners ever benefit women? They throw lesbians under the bus in a second if they can hurt some trans people in the process. Even the lesbians like Allison do it. She's the kind of lesbian that works for a homophobic anti-trans lobby group, so we can't expect too much from her. The whole reason gender-critical people do things like attack rape crisis centers is to fuel anxiety. And honestly, when you put all their conspiracy theories together, you can see how terrifying and disgusting their imagined reality must be. Children are being butchered, mutilated, groomed by the thousands a year. Women's change rooms are being filled with disgusting, hairy rapists, pedophiles, and perverts. There's an epidemic of rapes being committed against young women by men in dresses. And if you go to get help, everyone at the Rape Crisis Center is a rapist in a dress too, who will call you a bigot for not wanting to be raped. You can't even say the word woman anymore without trans activists trying to cancel you with their X posts on X.com. But Russell Brand? He's just a sweet man being smeared by lying sluts who want attention. Like, Jesus, the Venn diagram of gender-critical people and misogynists is just this. While in the gender-critical groups, I saw them doing the same song and dances on Twitter.
This, in my opinion, is the mainstream media doing a takedown of someone who has been antagonizing them for years by challenging their narrative. This is Trial My Media, and all part of the cancel culture that many of us oppose. But carry on screaming, off with his head, like the mainstream media want.
Seen it too many times before. As soon as men expose the shit the predator class is getting up to, out come the murky allegations that he's a rapist, so if you don't treat him like a leper, then you're evil.
He never denies that he was promiscuous. I think he is being targeted as he is getting too close to the truth in some of his rants. He has already been demonetized by YouTube. Every action he took is pretty normal in the realm of Hollywood. The only reason he's being publicly blamed for it is that he's speaking about topics that people would rather he be silent about. There are thousands of other high-profile people that have done far worse than him that are protected. Not a single person from Epstein's list has been arrested or convicted, other than Caelan, of course.
One woman even said that the reason she didn't believe the reporting is that the
Times have
Times
smeared Rowling as anti-trans.
using J.K. Rowling's transphobia as the reason you don't believe survivors of rape. Nice legacy you have there. Would be a shame if anything happened to it. These comments are all from women in groups I joined while doing my 3-part series on my time undercover as Carol Marinera. And yes, sometimes I wish I'd chosen a more serious sounding name. Too late now. The gender critical groups are where I first realized how little the ideology is actually invested in dismantling rape culture. In fact, they're intent on upholding it. To give the less aware members the benefit of the doubt, which I'm not sure they deserve, it's hard to identify every single thing you believe to be true for no reason other than society has told you it was. Rape culture is insidious. It's so ingrained in the narratives we are taught from birth, sometimes outright said, but often just implied. But it's always dangerous. Pushing the narrative that rapists and sexual abusers are gender-bent men lurking in bathrooms, so obviously the man who didn't abuse you when you were 16 is safe to be around because he was not unpleasant in your interactions and he didn't identify as a woman, he must not be violent. This goes against every stat we have on who is most likely to abuse someone, people they know. And it sets up a world in which people, mostly women and kids, are taught to trust the wrong people, to fear the wrong people, and then not be believed when that naivety is taken advantage of. And that's exactly what these women say happened when they told people about Brand. They weren't believed. Who doesn't want to fuck a celebrity, right? I believe these women, not just because I'm a feminist, and not just because I'm a survivor of intimate partner violence and rape, and not just because their stories are meticulously documented, with evidence going back over a decade. I believe them because I have literally no reason not to. I know gender-critical rape apologists will say things like,
I've watched most of the documentary. Seems sus to me. He may be a total arsenal to women, but that doesn't make it illegal. They seem to be clutching at straws.
Exactly right. Rape and bad, obnoxious behaviour aren't the same either. When he is convicted, I will shut up.
It's called a presumption of innocence, and it's a basic human right.
but guess what? I'm not a court of law. I'm not bound to this failed fucking excuse of a justice system. I don't care if he's not been proven guilty by a patriarchal institution that would rather incarcerate a black person for having a gram of weed than a cop who murders someone in cold blood during a wellness check. And yes, even in my mind, he had the presumption of innocence. And then, unlike many of his defenders, I simply looked at the allegations, read the evidence, and came to my own opinion. A presumption of innocence doesn't extend into ignoring the evidence. They're free to think him innocent despite all evidence to the contrary, but I don't have to. I'm not a judge, I'm not a juror, and I am certainly not obligated to wish upon him anything other than what he deserves, which likely is a lot worse than whatever is going to happen to him because of this. I can tell you one thing, though. If every single detail about this case was identical, every single accusation, the response from Brand, all of it was the same, but Brand also identified as a woman, these same people defending him would be calling for his execution, would be using this as proof of the inherent violence of men that all trans women possess in their sexed souls or whatever. The gender critical and TERF movements are based on a single issue ideology. The only thing that matters is harming trans people. There is no room for feminism when the plate's already full. Not even as a treat. This is one of the videos I felt compelled to make, the kind of script that I scrap all my plans for the week and feverishly write, which is unfortunate because these are the videos that come from a place I prefer not to visit, from that knot of pain and trauma in my nervous system that spiderwebs out and taints everything, because I remember what it was like to not be believed, to tell someone what was happening and have it be brushed off. I'm sure that means a bunch of people who spend all day on Reddit and Facebook will call me biased, say I'm just triggered. I really don't care. I call it empathy. Something you'd hope gender-critical people would show to 4 women who tell terrifying stories of being groomed, abused, and raped. But they have no empathy left to show. All they have is their malice, their talking points, and each other. I just wish that their ideology, miserable and lonely and poisonous, would be seen for what it is. And maybe one day, people like E.J. Smith, Kelly J. Keane, Julia Hartley Brewer, and every other person using the guise of women's rights as a shield against criticism will be seen for what they are. The same thing they call other women. Handmaids of the patriarchy. If you think this video has value, please give it a like, comment, share after you subscribe. I don't care if you share it to your Twitter account with 1 follower. YouTube sees that as a signal that it's worth watching. I have a Patreon where you can support me if you'd want to. It'd be nice and I would appreciate it. I would prefer not to have to take sponsors on videos like this, or honestly at all ever, but that's not feasible for me right now. On my Patreon, there are extra videos, bennies like getting your name in the credits or hiding an item on my CGI sets for my longer videos. I also have a podcast, Respect the Dead. We pick a horrible person from history and talk about why they're literally the worst. And sometimes, if we like them, the best. Okay. Love you. Bye.